How should you deal with creditors if you're laid off, furloughed, or see a significant decrease in income for, let's say, a 2 to 6 week period of time? I'm Jonathan Ginsberg, and I'm an Atlanta area personal bankruptcy attorney. I'm recording this in the beginning of or middle of March of 2020, when obviously we're dealing with the coronavirus, the COVID-19 issue, where a lot of businesses are closing down. I will tell you, the courts are closing down. I suspect that many people who are still working are seeing a drop if they're commission-based, and there'll likely be a number of layoffs. I'm hearing that we may see even more shutdowns in the next few weeks. So I suspect a lot of people are going to be financially burdened, especially if you live paycheck to paycheck. So what do you do? Because obviously creditors are not going to be all that happy about not getting paid, and you need to have a game plan in the event that this does happen. So I made a few notes, thought about this, made a few notes, and I will tell you at the outset that I think bankruptcy is not something to consider right now. Bankruptcy would be something to look at once things kind of get back to normal, because you never really want to file bankruptcy when things are very, very fluid, unless you really have to, let's say to stop a foreclosure. And I suspect we're probably going to see some governmental action to stop that. Repossession is a different story, but I'm going to get to that in a minute. But I think that I would not file bankruptcy right now, but I think you should have some plans in place to deal with a slowdown in income. So what do you do? I think, first of all, if you communicate with your creditors, that's a real positive thing, especially before you fall delinquent. So again, let's go back to the example of a car payment. If you're behind on your car, if you're about to get behind on your car payment or truck payment, I would get on the phone, contact the lender to see if they have any programs for people who have loans. Now, I went and looked this morning, and I saw that a couple of creditors do. I think Ford Finance and General Motors Finance, they do have programs out there, but I saw Toyota Motor Credit and Hyundai do not as of the middle of March. Now, again, if you call them, I don't know what they would say, but I think that if you do have loans with vehicles, I would definitely get on the phone and start calling, again, ideally before you fall behind. I suspect that the buy here, pay here places are going to be a lot less willing to work with you. So again, that comes into making strategies. If you have limited resources, what do you pay first? And my feeling is, if you have a creditor who'll work with you, then obviously you can hold off on that one. If you have people that won't work with you, then you may want to get those people paid. So for example, if you have a buy here, pay here, or if your car lender will not work with you, they have the right to repossess your car. The last thing you need right now is to have a vehicle repossessed. So that would be a priority. On the other hand, if you have a loan with General Motors Finance or the credit union, I looked at Georgia's own credit union, they will give you a deferment, perhaps more than one deferment. So you may be able to take advantage of that, but you need to find out. This is where knowledge is really important. You need to find out if your creditors have any programs for people who are facing loss of income because of this unexpected occurrence. Again, right now it's the COVID-19, but it could be something else in the future. You just need to know. Find out if there's a payment deferral program in place. And if it is, follow the guidelines specifically. If you have to apply, give them documentation, get that together, and do that now. I would also tell you that credit card companies are the last people I would pay, because they have the least amount of power. They can call you and harass you, but again, they have to file suit against you. If you get sued, you have 30 days to respond, but right now the courts are really not operating, so you're not going to get sued. So I would not put any effort into the credit card companies other than to tell them to leave you alone right now. Again, this is something when you're in survival mode, we can deal with this later on, either inside of bankruptcy or outside of bankruptcy. I think as far as other priorities, obviously food, shelter, utilities are important, although again, I'm seeing that the power company, Georgia Power, and gas companies, and I believe even some of the water utilities are not going to shut people off. Again, this doesn't solve the problem, but it delays having to deal with it down the road. So I would say if you have that opportunity and you need the cash for buying food or buying supplies for your family, that's where your money needs to go. But be aware of what type of break you're going to get. Don't go into this thinking that, oh, I'm just going to deal with it later, not knowing what their policies are. Because as much as these utilities and these companies' creditors say they want to help you, they don't want to help you, they want to get paid. So they ultimately going to want to get paid down the road. And it very well may be that once the crisis kind of lessens a little bit, once the virus is sort of gone through and we're starting to see a decline in the number of cases, you may see an uptick in the amount of creditor action against you. So don't assume that the creditors out there have your best interests at heart. They do not. Now, again, there's a good chance that we're going to see from the government more shutdown mandates, businesses, restaurants, things like that closing, but don't rely on the government to protect you. I think we've seen that the government has not done a very good job of preparing for this pandemic. Don't assume the government's going to rush in and solve every problem, because realize that even if, like I was listening, for example, to some proposals where they're going to tell businesses they've got to pay people even if they're not working, and they'll make it up later on with tax breaks. Well, there's all kind of exceptions for large companies, for small companies. Don't assume that your employer is going to basically continue to pay you while no business is coming in. Maybe for a short period of time, but it's not going to go on for a long period of time. As far as bankruptcy, again, I think this is something I would look at later on, just so you're aware what it can do down the road. Chapter 13 bankruptcy can basically give you a 5-year period of time to pay back bills that you have not been able to pay, many times without interest, many times at a lower rate. You can reduce the amount owed. But that Chapter 13 is a 5-year program, so takes a long time, a lot of red flags, a lot of hassles with it. But again, it can solve a problem of a repossession or foreclosure. So I don't think for an immediate problem, that's something that's going to probably change significantly over the next 2, 4, 6 weeks. I wouldn't say bankruptcy Chapter 13 makes a lot of sense unless you have an immediate crisis, the creditor's circling the block to pick up your car, you've got a foreclosure scheduled for the first Tuesday of the month, that sort of thing. But my guess is that we're going to probably see some relief from the government before then. Chapter 7 is designed to wipe out debt like credit card bills, medical bills, things like that. But the problem with Chapter 7 is, first of all, there's a look back in terms of your income. So what your income was 6 months ago may not be what it is now. And then going forward, it may change again in 4 to 6 weeks. You're much better off filing bankruptcy when things are stable. So again, I wouldn't rush into bankruptcy while things are just so unsettled. Now, certainly, if you have any questions, you can call our office. Either Susan Bloom or I will be happy to discuss with you our thoughts about how to prioritize your bills and to deal with some of this financial distress. We do it by phone. We can do it by Skype. You don't need to come in. And obviously, you should avoid going out as much as you possibly can. But we're happy to chat with you about thoughts about dealing with financial problems outside of bankruptcy, so you can kind of prepare yourself. I suspect we're going to see a big jump in bankruptcy filings in a month or two, but in preparation, you can help yourself by, again, knowing what the options are out there, what your creditors are saying, and really thinking about how to allocate your funds before even thinking about bankruptcy. I think that if you do that, if you do need to file bankruptcy down the road, you'll be in a better position to do so. You will not have used your money. For example, you would never want to use your last money in your checking account to pay credit card bills. Makes no sense. You don't want to clear out a 401k because you've got immediate debts. I think there are better ways to approach that, and I think when people panic or they're under a lot of stress, they don't know exactly what to do. So what I would tell you is, if you have any questions, call our office, 770-393-4985, or email us. My email is ginsburg@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to give you more information. So for now, this is Jonathan Ginsburg telling you to be safe and hoping for the best. Thanks a lot.